Are we living in the best time ever? So I would argue we have no way of knowing. We don't know what it felt like to live in that time. And on some level, we don't have a great measure of what it feels like to be in our time because we're living it. And so somebody said, well, what about childbirth? And yes, childbirth is the most dangerous thing a woman can do in her lifetime. Notice I did not say historically. Yes, historically, the rate of childbirth in some places was like 50%. But if we were going to use that as the measure, in some places now, we have a very high rate of maternal mortality during childbirth. In terms of industrialized nations, the United States is doing terribly. If we're just looking at the US, we'd have to go back to the 80s for the lowest rate of maternal mortality in our nation. So, even by that metric, we are not living in the best time ever. My point is not about what we have that they don't have. I assure you, without modern medicine, I wouldn't have made it through. My point is that we don't really have a good sense of feeling like it felt then. We just have these sorts of elements of the past, even in your own lived experience. And I remember the 80s. I would have assumed that modern medicine today would mean that women are definitely living more often than in the 80s. And so we just have to be careful to assume this is the best time ever, because lots of things might have been great in some other moment, in some other history, and we will never be able to judge that. We will always be colored by our present.